Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Yulia Billig, and my hobby is studying the history of Europe and art, predominantly from the 11th to the 17th centuries. During my travels, I keep travel notes, as each journey is thematic and as a rule brings new discoveries and stories. Based on these, I create my channel content. I voice the main video myself in Russian. For English and German voiceovers, I use artificial intelligence to spare you from my accent. Please like the video if you enjoyed it. I'll be happy if you share my stories with your friends. In my previous video, I talked about the Queen Elizabeth II's Diamond Jubilee Galleries. However, I didn't mention the most important thing, the work that impressed me so much that I decided to dedicate a separate video to it. This is the portrait of Elizabeth II, created by the outstanding artist Ralph Heimans. Standing before this canvas, I experienced such strong emotional impact that I couldn't hold back tears. Unfortunately, photography is prohibited in the galleries, so I reached out to Lady Penelope Mountbatten, who represents the artist's interests. And now, with deep gratitude, I present to you the photographs kindly provided by Mr. Ralph Heimans and Lady Penelope Mountbatten. My story is dedicated to the history of Ralph Heimans and the history of this portrait. I recommend watching this video on a large screen to fully experience the incredible pleasure of this painting. In 1970, in Sydney, in the family of documentary filmmaker Frank Heimans and French language teacher Josette Heimans, a boy was born who from his earliest years never let go of his pencil. Ralph grew up in an amazingly multinational family with Dutch, Lebanese, and Jewish roots. This mixture of cultures left its mark on the future artist, teaching him to see beauty and diversity and depth within contrasts. My first memories are of drawing constantly, Ralph recalled later. At 17, the young man's talent was noticed. He won the Australian National Art Award, which opened doors to European art schools for him. He visited schools in Italy, England, Austria, but didn't find there what he was looking for. Teaching of classical painting techniques, methods of how to properly convey light and shadow, how to create color depth with thin, transparent brushstrokes, and how to harmoniously build composition. The late 1980s was a period where conceptual art predominated in European art schools. Students were taught more to reflect on art than to master practical skills. Returning from Europe, Ralph entered Sydney University, where he studied an unusual combination of subjects, fine arts and mathematics. This love of mathematics would later be reflected in his portraits. Complex geometric compositions, play of perspective, and mirror reflections would become his calling card. He received a bachelor's degree in fine arts and mathematics in 1991 and began working as an architect. Heimans took lessons at Julian Ashton's art school, studied with Polish master Zbigniew Dromiecki, and engaged very intensively in self-education. 4 hours he stood before canvases of great masters, studying the secrets of chiaroscuro, the play of light and shadow that can bring any image to life. I built my own technique. If I look at a painting, I can understand how the artist achieved these effects, the artist later recalled in an interview with Lucy Davies for The Telegraph in 2012. Although various genres were studied at Julian Ashton's school, many graduates became renowned portraitists, which probably influenced Ralph Heimans' choice as well. His first significant works, Gloves Off, 1996, and Radical Restraint, 1998, were portraits, and immediately gained recognition. They were acquired by the National Portrait Gallery of Australia. Incredible success for a young artist. Heimans said, "My approach is to immerse myself in the subject's world, drawing inspiration from that." Portrait painting provided him with opportunities to create multi-layered artistic narratives. By 2012, Ralph Heimans was already a recognized master of portraiture. He painted Danish Princess Mary and Prince Frederick, created portraits for the European court in Luxembourg. His work adorned the walls of the world's most important galleries. But when Queen Elizabeth II's Diamond Jubilee approached, 60 years of her reign, the artist had a bold idea. What if I propose to paint a portrait of the Queen herself, he thought. No one had invited him, no one had commissioned it. This was pure creative initiative. But how to approach Buckingham Palace? Ralph had serious grounds for such an approach. Several years earlier, he had painted a stunning portrait of Judge Michael Kirby, a work called Radical Restraint, which caused a sensation in the art world. This portrait became one of the most popular works at the National Portrait Gallery of Australia. It was not just technically outstanding, but also deeply metaphorical. Kirby supported the artist's idea, and the Australian High Commissioner in London, John Doth, helped establish contact with Buckingham Palace and arrange an audience. February 2012. Heimans flies to London, having no firm guarantees from Buckingham Palace. While waiting for an answer, the artist spends days in Westminster Abbey, studying its architecture, absorbing the atmosphere of the 900-year-old temple where all the English monarchs were crowned. He acted at his own risk, having no guarantees that the project would be approved. This speaks to his determination and faith in artistic vision. And suddenly, a call from the palace. Her Majesty agrees to the portrait. When Ralph first met the Queen at Buckingham Palace, he was amazed. She really has an extraordinary presence and real grace. When I met her, I was really struck by her humility as well, and meeting the Queen became a life-changing experience, he recalled later in an interview with Australian Jewish News. These were unforgettable 50 minutes of meeting with an amazing woman of stunning destiny. The 50-minute session was devoted to photography. There wasn't enough time for sketches. The artist explained his concept to the Queen, and she carefully followed his directions. According to Heimans, Queen Elizabeth was an excellent model. But the real magic began afterward. Heimans didn't paint an ordinary portrait in palace interiors. His artistic vision was far more ambitious. He placed the Queen at the very heart of English history, on the Cosmati mosaic floor in Westminster Abbey, on the very spot where she was crowned 60 years ago. This ancient floor, which Shakespeare himself called the floor of heaven, symbolizes the eternal model of the universe. Here, where English monarchs have been crowned for 900 years, Heimans depicted the Queen in the very crimson robe in which she was crowned in 1953, with Queen Victoria's diamonds. The portrait, measuring 250 by 342 centimeters, was created over months. Every detail was thought through, to the smallest elements. Every glint of light had symbolic meaning. September 2012. National Portrait Gallery of Australia in Canberra. Grand opening of the glorious exhibition. The portrait causes a sensation. In 6 months, the exhibition attracts a record number of visitors. The success exceeded all expectations. In 2013, the portrait moves to London. Thanks to the generosity of Lord and Lady Harris of Peckham, Westminster Abbey acquired the painting Portrait of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II for its permanent collection. It seems the portrait story finds a happy ending. But on June 13, 2013, the incredible happens. Activist from the Fathers for Justice movement, Tim Harris, a 41-year-old electrician from South Yorkshire, infiltrates the Abbey and sprays purple paint on the portrait, writing the word "help." The masterpiece is defaced. Absolute, pure vandalism. Harris received 6 months in prison, but what about the painting? The portrait is removed from the exhibition. Painstaking work by Abbey restorers begins with the artist's participation. 5 weeks of intensive labor, millimeter by millimeter, restoring every brushstroke. July 15, 2013, the fully restored portrait returns to the exhibition. Abbey visitors can again admire the masterpiece. The painting seems to have gained a second life, having passed through trial and emerged even more beautiful. June 8, 2018, a special day in the portrait's history. Queen Elizabeth II herself ceremoniously opens the new Diamond Jubilee Gallery in the Triforium of Westminster Abbey. Heimans' portrait becomes the centerpiece of the space, created specifically for it. The artist is present at the ceremony. His childhood dream exceeded his wildest fantasies. He didn't just paint the Queen's portrait. He created a work that became part of the 1,000-year history of the English monarchy. September 8, 2022. The death of Queen Elizabeth II shocks the world. Ralph Heimans, learning of his August model's passing, reflected on his creation's fate. As Heimans said in an interview with Australian Jewish News after the Queen's death, the portrait has taken on new meaning. The theme of the work was the coronation, the moment of coronation. Now it's equally relevant because coronation is about the passing of the crown from one monarch to the next. It's about the movement of history. The portrait outlived its model and became not just an artistic work, but a historical document of an era. On the very spot where the Queen stands, King Charles III was crowned. The circle is complete, but history continues. In Westminster Abbey, among ancient stones and stained glass, The portrait by the Australian artist continues to hang, the boy from a multinational family who dared to dream of meeting the Queen and managed to make that dream come true. Every day, thousands of visitors stop before this canvas, and each sees something different in it: the grandeur of monarchy, the artist's mastery, the beauty of art, or simply the portrait of an amazing woman who served her country for 70 years. Ralph Heimans created not just a portrait, he created a bridge between past and future, between Australia and Britain, between dream and reality. And this bridge will stand for centuries, reminding everyone that sometimes the most incredible dreams really do come true. And I strongly recommend that when you're in London, you must visit the Diamond Jubilee Galleries and stand for at least a few minutes before this portrait. You will see Elizabeth II's entire life with her hopes, disappointments, pride, pain, dignity, and humility. You will see it with your heart. It's an incredible miracle of emotional experience.